This is a really quick video on how to use Cloud9 to create a HTML document for web design. Um, I already went ahead and deleted the README file and the Hello World sample HTML document by right-clicking on it and going to delete. You can do the same just to give yourself more space inside of your Cloud9 environment. Um, First step is to create the folders that you're going to need. And you don't have to do it in this order. This just is the method that I take. Create the folders that you're going to need for your HTML document. To do so, you're going to click underneath your workspace inside of this area right here. So it's actually going to be a right click inside of this workspace. So right click inside of this workspace, and you're going to go to where it says new folder. That's going to create a new folder for you that's unnamed. So go ahead and name it. The first folder name we're going to create is going to be CSS. And then we're going to hit enter. Now I'm going to click back on my workspace name to create another folder. And I'm doing this because I don't want the folder to go inside of the CSS folder. I want it to exist inside of just the workspace folder itself so that there's the correct file path to get to that folder when I'm referencing it. So I'm going to right click underneath my CSS folder now, go to new folder, and I'm going to name this one IMG, which just stands short for images. This is where I would put all of my images at. Then I'm going to hit enter. Notice how right now the IMG folder is highlighted. I'm going to show you what would happen if I create a new folder with the IMG folder highlighted and how you can solve it. So once again, I'm going to click underneath any of my folders inside of this workspace, right click, go to new folder. Notice how this new folder now appears inside of my IMG folder. Okay, that's a quick fix, but to prevent it, that's why we always click on our workspace folder first. But to fix it, all we're going to do is left click and hold down our left click button and drag the new folder to our workspace folder. And you'll notice that it'll take it outside of our IMG folder. To fix the file name, I'm just going to right click on the new folder, go to rename, and I'm going to name this JS. Now for a basic web design project, these are the three folders that you're going to need in order to organize and house your files. All right, now I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to click on my workspace folder, go to File, New File. This gives me an untitled document, which now acts as a HTML. That does not act as a HTML. It actually acts as a text document. So I want to make sure that my browser understands that I want it to be read and all the text inside of it, I want it to be coded inside of HTML. To do so, all I have to do is save this document. All right, so I'm going to go to File, Save As, and I'm going to give this document a file name of index.html. The .html in this situation is really important because it lets the browser know that I'm creating an HTML document and it separates it from any other file path or file extension, I should say. Then I'm going to hit save. When I hit save, you'll notice that I have created an HTML document and it's saved and going to be coded as such with this little symbol right here. I'm going to just increase the size so you can see it. All right, now I'm going to create the basic structure for any HTML document. This is the basic structure for all HTML documents, what you need at the surface, at least at the start. All right, then I'm going to save it. It's important to make sure that you save all work that you do so that you won't lose it frequently inside of Cloud9. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and create a CSS document. I'm going to click on my CSS file, go to File, New File. All right, once again, I have an untitled document. I want to save it as a CSS document. So I'm going to go to File, Save As. Make sure that my CSS folder is selected here so that it goes inside of this folder and not any one of the other folders. And I'll give it a name. I'm going to call this one index.css just so I know that it refers to the first HTML document that I created. Um, Even though in Cloud9 you can't use the same name for the same file type, you can use the same name for a different file type. That's why I call this one index.css and not index.html. Right. After I do that, I'm going to just hit save. All right. And now you'll notice that I have a file that's index.html and a file that's index.css, and they're both coded in the language that's going to be written in those files. All right. Now I'm going to click on my JavaScript folder, go to File, hit Save As, and I'll name this index.js. All right. Those file extensions is really important. So make sure that depending on the file that you're using for your HTML document, if it's going to be a external file like a CSS file or a JavaScript file, that they have the proper file extensions. Notice here that my CSS document is selected. If I hit the save button, it'll go inside of my CSS folder. I'm going to make sure that it goes inside of my JavaScript folder because it's a JavaScript file by clicking on the JavaScript folder first and then hitting the enter button. Save button, I should say. So now I have my HTML file, my JavaScript file, and my CSS file that have been created. Okay, now all I have to do is link the JavaScript file and the CSS file to my HTML document. To do so, I'm going to go back to my HTML document. Within my head, I'm going to create a link tag. Okay, so the href is what the HTML document is going to use to find the style sheet document. So I have to write the correct file path of that sheet. Now, first we created the CSS folder, so I'm going to type in CSS slash, which means look inside of the CSS folder, and then I'm going to type in the file name that I created for the CSS file itself, which is index.css. All right, the file path is extremely important. It tells the HTML document where it should look for the file that we wanted to be linked to this HTML document. Right. Now, for the JavaScript file, we're going to place that inside of the body, all right, and at the end of the body. So whatever code you have at the top of your body, you're just going to want to make sure that your JavaScript file is the last line inside of that body. And this is just for loading purposes. All right, so I'm going to link it to my HTML document. The way that I do that is a little bit different than my CSS file. For this one, I'm going to do script src equals, and the src is where my HTML document is going to look for, or locate, I should say, the source file for this JavaScript. Once again, we put it inside of a folder. So I'm going to do JS slash so that my HTML document knows to go to my JS folder first, and then the file name, which is index.js. Okay. Now, with all these codes, I have a HTML document that has a linked CSS file and a linked JavaScript file. This is for when you're using an external style sheet and an external JavaScript document. Okay. Now I'm just going to make sure I save all my changes so that Cloud9 doesn't lose them. And that's it. Now you can write your code inside of each document separately.